This is the FlipNerd.com Expert Real Estate Investing Show, the show for real estate investors, whether you're a veteran or brand new. I'm your host, Mike Hambright, and each week I bring you a new expert guest that will share their knowledge and lessons with you. If you're excited about real estate investing, believe in personal responsibility, and taking control of your life and financial destiny, you're in the right place. This is episode number 438, and my guest today is Brian Spitz. Brian is the largest independent home buyer in the state of Texas, which is also a big state, who has purchased over 3,300 homes, or about 400 houses a year. He's also a fellow member of my Investor Fuel Mastermind for real estate investors, and we've got to know each other over time. He's just a really smart guy. Now, most of us in major markets have been talking lately about the threat from our large, well-funded home buying companies that are coming into our markets. Companies such as Opendoor, Knock, OfferPad, Zillow Offers. There are more and more. But we've never discussed this topic on the show before today. So Brian has spent more resources and more thought leadership on this than anyone else I know in learning about our competitors and how we can navigate around them. And that's what our show is all about today. How to adapt to the changing market around us with some of these large organized competitors, and really more about who some of these competitors are. More importantly, how you can learn from your competitors and these competitors and not only survive, but thrive. Please help me welcome Brian Spitz to the show. Hey, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, good. Hey, I'm excited to talk about this today. Obviously, we've talked a few times. You're doing some really innovative stuff that the average investor hasn't even thought of yet. So you're definitely on the cutting edge of investors in America for sure, and really excited to talk about what you're working on. But also, we have this topic that there's a lot of mumbles going on across real estate investors about Opendoor and Knock and some of the big dogs that are coming in that are really well funded, that are running a different business model than what we're used to as investors. And it's going to be great. We honestly I've had that conversation 100 times with different investors, but we've never talked about it on the show before. And I know because of what you're working on in your business and how you're taking it to a whole nother level, that you have a pretty good idea of what each of these competitors are doing and how we might be able to start to compete against them and kind of avoid them as much as possible. So it's going to be exciting. Hey, why don't you, before we get started, tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. I am the owner of Big State Home Buyers. That's the name of my primary company. And it's a home buying wholesale focused company in Houston. We do some business in Dallas and San Antonio. And I'd say I've been doing that for 14 years. Big State's about 11 years old almost. And we've won lots of service awards and done over, I guess it's over 3,300 transactions now. And
amazing.
Really figured out what doesn't work when you're scaling a business that's wholesale focused. Done tons of rehabs and rentals and lease options, anything you can think of in residential real estate we've done. And so
yeah, that's awesome.
Real focused right now on kind of innovating and moving towards, what's going to work better tomorrow. Kind of looking ahead of the trends coming in our business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And to give a little perspective, I know you don't necessarily like to brag on yourself, but you're doing over 400 transactions a year, generally thought of to be the largest independent home buyer in the state of Texas, which Texas is obviously a massive state. So there's a lot to be said for that. So congratulations.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. But the thing is that what I want to point out here is when you do the type of volume you do and you have the type of organization that you do, you have your ear to the ground probably better than most. Like a lot of smaller investors can feel it. They know things are changing, but you're able to stay a little bit ahead of the curve because you have so much more to kind of protect and so much more, maybe, I guess, capacity on your team to be able to be looking around the corner as what's coming next.
Well, I would say one of my biggest core competencies is internet marketing. And we've done internet marketing since 2009. And that requires you to be so in tune with competitive trends to stay efficient and keep it manageable that, working, we did a bigger push to work in DFW about 1.5 years ago. And once, I got a hold of seeing what it was like to compete against companies like Opendoor, I knew that it's a matter of time before that becomes an enormous threat to your average investor. And so we really put our heads down and spent the last 1.5 years preparing for that. And And just, I think it's really important for people to keep an eye on what other people are doing in this industry. And it's something people get really egotistical and get focused on how good they are instead of what's coming, at any, in any change in the market.
And it's kind of interesting. Like if I look back, I've been investing for about 11 years. I knew I would say my competitors either fall into one category. I know who they are. Like I know the individual, like it's that guy, Joe or whatever. And then, or there's just this mass of the people that I don't know who they are. It's like all the independents that are doing a deal here and there.
Right.
But now we have this kind of organized competition that's coming into a lot of markets, really well funded. Usually they've raised, millions or hundreds of millions or billions of dollars even.
Yeah.
And it's like this unknown, it's like this faceless entity that's like this black cloud coming into our markets, or that's how we act, right? So who are some of these guys? A lot of people know Open Door, but who are some of the
there's a ton of them. We've got, just to name a few, there's Open Door, OfferPad, Homey, Bungalow, Knock, Zillow Offers, of course, is a decent competitor. I'm trying to look. Z-Home, Zome, Redfin. We do a lot of competitive. We have a war room here in the office that's got a whole 2 walls dedicated to understanding competitors, their marketing strategies, their messaging, and their growth.
Okay. So what changed? I mean, there's been this movement over the last 10 years, over the last, let's say 8 or 9 years of I guess this is what I used to think about the real estate investing market, and I still believe this, is the opportunity that existed for us, the guys like us when we started, right, was an inefficient marketplace, right? And now it's getting more efficient because of guys like this. So is that what's allowed them to come in and kind of make things more efficient, take advantage of that themselves?
I think you're talking about something very key, which is what we do, especially as wholesalers, is only made possible by inefficiency. Inefficiency where real estate agents can't serve the market, don't understand the customers, and customers don't have the access to the buyers that wholesalers do. So they're able to contract, wholesale, and make fees that are often out of proportion with the service we provide. And so that sets the stage for the threat. But what the threat actually initiates is those years ago where all these hedge funds start buying. And so I could see even then that, if I'm charging $20,000 and the hedge fund is buying it and then they're fixing and renting it, it's a matter of time before those people figure out, like, we don't want to pay the $20,000. Mm-hmm. And so with enough money, you can overcome pretty much any obstacle. And so it was a matter of time before funding made its way to people to get direct to sellers. And then that's what we're seeing now is the result of institutional money wanting direct access to the sellers.
If you're an active real estate investor already doing deals and looking to double or triple your business, you should consider joining the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. We're a small group of investors that share our best practices, tips, and tricks with one another in an effort to all win. We limit our membership to only 1 to 2 members per market, so everyone shares their knowledge, tips, and tricks openly and honestly. Our members include some buying 1 to 2 houses a month, up to some of the most respected investors and leaders in the real estate investing industry, some of which have personally done over 1,000 deals. If you'd like to be considered for our invitation-only world-class mastermind, please visit investorfuel.com to request your personal invitation. Our next meeting is coming up quickly. Go to investorfuel.com now to learn more.
With enough money, you can overcome pretty much any obstacle. And so it was a matter of time before funding made its way to people to get direct to sellers. And then that's what we're seeing now is the result of institutional money wanting direct access to the sellers.
Yeah. And it started with buying from other wholesalers, like you said. Then it went into they got good at raising money for this, right? And they raised so much money, then most of them became massive national hard money lenders, right? And then they're just working their way down to get closer and closer to that end user, which is where guys like us and gals as well have operated, like going to the kitchen table, buying from sellers directly, right?
Yes, and that remains, as much as there are threats, there remain advantages that I think it's important to be in tune with. But The other piece of it is again, with inefficiency, the people that are writing the checks or making those investment decisions over on Wall Street are so far removed from the operational challenges of owning, managing, and acquiring, in reverse order, single family real estate, that a lot of people get really caught up in, like Open Door, for example, their model. They're real focused on, oh, how can you pay that much for a house? It's just a matter of time. I think that it's a foolish mistake. People get focused on why other models don't work long term and don't realize that the people running these massive companies, they have other plans at work. But at the same time, it's true that like we went to IMN this year, and some of the biggest challenges these massive portfolio holders are finding is how do you operate managing thousands of houses. It's you cannot get away from someone needs to paint the house, someone is going to live there and pay the rent and operate, right, manage the broken windows, and there's way too much human interaction or human need in it to for operations to get rid of those problems. And I think that is a long-term threat to our whole market, actually, is inefficiency. But make no mistake, the people that are sitting around paying too much for houses know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what are some of their models? They all have different models. Some of them actually buy the house as investors. Some of them just kind of arbitrage between a buyer and a seller. They're all doing different things. What are some of the models you've seen?
Well, so Open Door's model is to create massive market share, going into cities and spending millions of dollars a year, thwarting probably even home investors in their marketing strategies, and focused on getting out there and buying the home directly from the seller. They put lipstick on them, and they put some of them back in their own marketplace, but their biggest source of resale is through other investors. So they have their own online bidding platform that's available to other buyers and institutional buyers, kind of like Roofstock. And so they're selling the properties above market value to other greater fools in Wall Street. So, but the money is so bottomless that there's really not. It's really not a noticeable loss or making a difference. Then you have knock, which I think is the most outrageously inefficient model, where they will buy your new home, let you trade in your old home, fix up your old home, put it on the market, and then settle up with you at the end. It's a 9-step process, which is adding. I mean, that is just the worst model ever. And then you have companies like Zillow Instant Offers, which does some combination of testing purchasing in some markets, but then also selling leads and things like that. And they give you this estimate on your home. They give away free information. Zillow is probably the most prepared to make a big impact in the market. And some of them, I think there's one called Door. The other one was Knock. So Door will list your home for a flat $5,000 fee. And so all of these models, though, the reason I don't think we have seen the one that is the best for all consumers yet, because they're still playing in the space of what is most frustrating sellers, which is the open market. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't think we've yet seen the one that's going to truly devastate the marketplace as we know it. But
what do you think that is?
Well, that's ours.
Okay. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what people can do. Let me ask you this. I think a lot of us feel, and you and I haven't talked about this, but the market is shifting, right? Aside from these competitors, but just the macro economic market in the U.S. of housing is slowing down. It feels like it's starting to slow down in a lot of markets. No matter what market you're in, stuff that's higher priced is slowing down usually, right? So nobody's saying there's a crash. Probably some people are saying there's a crash. I'm not saying there's a crash. I'm not predicting that. But I think it is slowing down, and I think investors. I think there's a cycle. There's going to be a downturn in the cycle at some point, right?
Right.
So for a lot of these players that are coming that are super well funded, And we all know that just because somebody's really well funded, I mean, if you were involved in any way, or you remember the .com bust, there's a lot of stupid money that makes bad decisions that gets wiped out at some point. So probably all these players won't make it through a downturn, but some combination of the market slowing down and more expensive money, right? Rates are creeping up like that. These guys tend to operate on pretty thin margins for the most part compared to the average investor, I would assume. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes. And
yeah. So changes in the market could really, really impact their model more so than guys like you and me.
So here's how this is going to work. And so I know that you include some links, and we'll include a link to an article we just published in the Houston Business Journal. Okay. And it specifically mentions the company Webvan from the late 90s.
I was an investor in that. I lost it all.
Yeah, of course. they raised $400 million. They were valued at over $4 billion, and then they were bankrupt.
Yeah.
And, the reason is because when we play in a time where information is so available that margins for large companies they're always razor thin. And so a handful of mistakes in a company's business model takes it from super successful to bankrupt. And going back to this idea that the people who run all of these hedge funds are not themselves experienced real estate investors, they make mistakes. Open Door, I look at their strategy. I've actually been through the funnel with them some, and if they I look at it and I think if they would just move that word or just split that number, it would make such an impact to their market. And it just goes to show you don't have people that really understand what they're trying to buy and sell. And so that is really the biggest threat for them. Now, as far as the market itself goes, we do a lot of buy and hold. It's part of our long-term asset development strategy. We take it private money, we combine it with private bank debt, and so they're all 20-year AMD loans with balloons, and the interest rates as we keep developing those borrowing relationships are creeping up. And you have companies like CoreVest that will lend you, interest rates there are a good bit over 6%. It makes a big difference in your margin from 4.8 to 6.3%.
No doubt.
So, it's a really, from a macro level, there's all these compounding issues. So you have money's more expensive. You have millions of more dollars in advertising being spent by people with bottomless, bank accounts. So that starts to drive the cost of marketing up, push people who market out, and the deals become more scarce. And then you have markets like DFW where the bottom of the market keeps getting absorbed. So the prices homes that make the most sense for investors are no longer even available. We're on DFW where we saw the house a year and a half ago. It was worth $145. Then it's worth $190 now.
Yep.
Year and a half, because there is no market for homes under 200. So everywhere you turn, it's not good for the individual investor. It's not. It's a crash or any kind of market corrections coming. Yes, it's good, but it doesn't do me any good for the market correcting in the $500,000 price point. I don't buy and keep properties in that price point. Right. And so it's really a time where people need to investigate the best strategies. So if you're in this forever, if this is what you want to keep doing, then modifying your business to see ahead of how these changes will all culminate over the next couple of years, there's always money to be made in real estate. So that doesn't change, but how you do it will change.
Well, let's talk about that. How does the average investor that's listening to this show right now, and I'll just tell you, we have thousands of people a day that listen to the show. So it's people that are brand new that are thinking about getting started. It's people that are doing a handful of deals a month and everywhere in between. So talk to those people a little bit. How do they not be scared off by this, but say, hey, here's an opportunity for me to do things differently than they've been done in the past? So give us kind of some survival tips, if you will, on how to survive this threat.
Well, I think the very first thing to do is really understand whether or not you're prepared to invest in getting in this business and staying in it. So, when we hear people that say, I just quit my job and I'm going to go out and get an investment in real estate, I'm like, oh, put some money in the bank, because it's not, it doesn't take off in a day. And right. I would avoid scale. So we're somebody who's scaled. We've had, 20 something employees before. I've had 2 employees before. And the larger you get, the more razor thin your margins get and the more deals you have to do to survive. And so I would, I hear people sometimes say, I'm looking to get an acquisition team of 7 or 10 people. And now is not the time to be scaling like that. Now is the time to be nimble and really get wise, keep the very best deals for people that are bankable, people that are able to build equity long term. It's never going to there's never going to be more homes in the price point that are good rentals. So
Right.
Now's the time to hold some, and then as far as investing and wholesaling and things like that in marketing, what people miss is how the market has changed in the last 10 years and how the audience has changed. So every time I see somebody advertising about stop foreclosure and bankruptcy and all this, mortgage companies haven't been writing loans to people with the bottom quarter of all mortgages are at a 625 credit score. It used to be like 550. And so they haven't been writing bad loans for 10 years. So
Right.
there's really little foreclosures left. And so
Right.
that is not the reason people sell to investors anymore. Yet that is, people harp on the wrong things. And so really understanding, baby boomers retiring and aging out and people inheriting and, the reason that people sell. That's really what we do very well, is understanding the mindset of the seller.
Yep.
And going after the homes that these large companies don't. These companies that focus on listing for $5,000 flat fee. Well, our sellers really don't want to list. So when someone has a pretty beautiful home on the market or about to go to market, just want to see their options, that's not our seller. Open Door doesn't buy homes, I think, pre-1960 or major foundation problems. They only close on 50% of the homes they contract. They don't have making it through their call center. They make a very pleasant experience. But if I could tell you the number of questions the lady on the other end of the phone could answer, you'd think she never was involved in a real estate transaction ever in her life, sweet as she could be. And so really capitalizing on their lack of training, their lack of knowledge about the space, their 50% close rate. I mean, that sucks.
So let's talk about that. So that means they're backing out of deals.
Half, 1 out of every 2.
Yeah. And we've seen that ourselves. We've tested like selling houses to them, and we've heard lots of horror stories where they tend to, I don't know how this couldn't really damage their brand over time, but they tend to overpromise something, and then it's like a week out from closing, and they're like, "Oh, well, we didn't know it needed this, so you have to agree to a $10,000 or $20,000 price reduction, and if you don't do it, we're going to have to back." I mean, that's what they're doing, right? Is they're coming back,
or they give you the option to fix it yourself. Well, newsflash, people are selling you their home because they don't want to do the repairs,
right?
So
and/or don't have the money to do it anyway, right?
Right. And so, what do you think is going to happen when you make an offer on a home that you've never seen? And so the problem is, the other problem is that consumers themselves don't know how transactions tick. And so they can very easily get sucked into bad wholesalers or bad business models for companies like Open Door. And they don't realize till they're at the end that it didn't work and why. And so, they have all intentions. They want market share, but they don't have the training, the experience, the foresight, and they pay so much up front that it looks like a dream come true. And when you're at the end, anyone that's ever done wholesaling before knows that we don't, but you can take the model where you overpay and then reduce the seller at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Not recommended, not something that I endorse.
No, I agree.
Because by the time the seller gets to the end, the likelihood that they're going to call back that first guy and say, "Oh man, you were right. Those guys are taking advantage of me. We're going to terminate and start all over again with you with the same price where this guy's reducing me to." It doesn't happen. They are pissed. They're not happy, but they close. And so, if you don't get the deal in the beginning, you're not likely to get it towards the end. And so it's really important to put in the effort up front when you're in front of a seller to really paint the picture for them of what this is going to end up like. But the more, I would say, the less motivated your seller, the more it's still better for them to take a discount from Open Door rather than yours. And so that goes back to really identifying what people calling you are really going to sell to you and focusing your time on that person. But their brand is very much damaged. We buying a house just yesterday. We working with a seller who started her whole search process off with Open Door, but never even considered the offer they made because of all of the damaged reviews that she saw. And so,
Wow.
So that will have an impact with them over time. But then again, every radio commercial they do establishes a brand name, that becomes harder to compete with. And so,
yeah. Talk a little bit about, because I know you are unlike anybody I've seen in terms of understanding seller psychology, like understanding where they're coming from. You spent a ridiculous amount of time and money understanding that because of where you're taking your business. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the fact that there are sellers out there, just like there are people that every time they travel, they're going to go to McDonald's or a franchise type restaurant because, well, at least I know what I'm getting. Chili's in Dallas is the same as Chili's in Chicago or LA or anywhere else. I just know what I'm getting. And there's some people that I just want to go to the local mom and pop. I want to try something local. Like they would never go to a franchise type restaurant, but it's the same as for sellers, right? Some people want to work with a big brand that I know should, care about their reputation. And there's some that's like, you know what? I want to work with somebody that's like right in my market here. And that's one thing that I think that these big guys can't really crack into as easily as the people that just want to work with somebody that's already in their community.
Right. So I'll tell you, there's a reason Chili's is Chili's because they have a lot more
sure.
mom and pop store. However, some of the good points is in our world, we're dealing with people in an age range where our average consumer is, in their 50s. And so they're a little less tech savvy. They're a little less willing to buy into this offer on my home over the phone,
Right.
They're more focused on brand and reputation. And so you don't have to this is the reason you don't want to get too out of scale, because if you need 400 transactions a year to be successful, you're putting yourself in a much bigger threatened position. But, for most investors, a couple of transactions a month can be very profitable, and you want to stay in that place, because there's always people that want the mom and pop experience. And we find it to be a very important thing to market of our expertise is that, listen, we are your local market. We've done thousands of transactions here. I can tell you how this is going to end up. And that's the thing that when they walk into Chili's is I want to know what this experience is going to be like. That's comforting. And so I can provide that to you because I know your market better than one of these large brands. And so that when I say like really taking advantage of what we do well, really important to focus on those things. Don't give them the same message that the other companies are giving because you can't provide the same service.
Yeah.
And so at the very highest level, psychologically, sales is about pressing on pain and offering relief. And so the things that people are the most afraid of in home selling, to an investor especially, if you neglect to mention those things and say how you can do it better, you've lost a big opportunity.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, as a competitive advantage, my question kind of originated from, is there a way to stand out by leaning into, I'm the local guy, I'm a part of this community too, I've helped a lot of people here.
Use the word local. Being part. So I went to this event in Las Vegas last week that was really focused on social media, which is honestly not one of my biggest interests, and it's something that we're really moving a focus to, is establishing yourself in social networks. It's really easy to find. Let me start over. What are people going to find out if they Google your name? And what are they going to find out if they look up your company name? And that's going to drive your business. Because even if you don't have a brand name, someone's going to look you up. And so putting content out there and getting people who are happy to write reviews Google reviews, Yelp, whatever it is, that makes the biggest impact to our volume. Number one impact is reputation. And so going and using things like social media, not to brag about how big your check is, but to talk about how you solve someone's problem, that's what you want showing up. And that's an opportunity to tell somebody, I'm local, I'm going to take care of you, and then put social proof out there, because anybody can say they're great. You need the proof out there.
Right.
Use social media for that. I think people use social as investors for the wrong reason.
I agree with that. Could you provide any tips to people that are listening right now, Brian, that to do a better job of getting social proof? Because every time you buy and sell a house, you have an opportunity. If you delivered, right, to get a testimonial. But it's so easy for us as investors that aren't, especially guys that aren't doing a lot of volume, guys or gals that aren't doing a lot of volume, to just like be thinking about, I just want this thing to go through. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I want to get my check or my wire and move on to the next one. But we're missing those opportunities. Any kind of guidance on how to do better at that?
And there are things that I wish we did better at that. But one thing I'll tell you for sure is once the seller walks away from the closing table, that the opportunity is over.
Right.
It's very hard to get people to do things, after the fact. And sometimes showing up at closing and handing them the iPad, here, sign into your Google account. Do you mind? And we really emphasizing to the person how important it is that they write that review, like how impactful it is in helping other people that need to sell their home understand that we're a reputable resource and we want to be here for many years to help people like you. Would you mind taking 5 minutes and writing this review for me? Because everybody has access. Like, we use Trustpilot, BBB, we use all these resources that cost all this money, but Google is free, and Yelp and Facebook, and have those links prepared. Walk into closing. We have our title company ask for those reviews for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sitting face to face and saying, Mr. Seller, I delivered for you. This is so important to me. Could you please help me? There's nothing I could say on here that would demonstrate how powerful and how much business we get because we do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or whatever.
I don't know if you guys do. I know some other people. So you're a member of our Investor Fuel Mastermind, and we've got a lot of pretty accomplished people in there that have shared ideas. And some of the other things that they do sometimes is they might even offer a gift certificate, $25 gift certificate, or some little thing. And
no shame.
What's that?
There's no shame.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, the truth is everybody, money talks or gifts talk, and it's not like, hey, if you lie here, I'm going to give you this. It's like, it's just an incentive to get them to actually take action. Like, do you mind if we buy you lunch after you close today? Here's a $50 gift card. Thanks for everything, but we'd really like you to do this first, right?
What we say is the same thing. So don't just say, hey, let me give you some more money. What we say is, we would really like to treat you and your family to dinner at your favorite restaurant. Can we offer you this $100 gift card if it's worthwhile?
Right.
And then tell them, and then remind them, when you first came here, remind them why they came to you, because the more they'll say, this was my problem and this is how this company solved it. Remind them, when you came to me, you didn't have any way to probate this will, your sister and you couldn't agree, would you mind writing about that and telling us how this transaction was impactful to solve that problem? Ask for what you want. If you're in sales, you got to ask for it.
Absolutely.
Say, I need you to do this.
Yeah, but make it easy for sure. Because a lot of these folks they're there to get their check and move on, right? So you got to make it worth their while and make it easy.
Yeah. Pay attention to your clients. If they got a Gmail address, they've got a Google account. If they're working off of AOL.com or ATT.net, then you might want to point them towards Yelp.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, this has been awesome. If folks wanted to learn more about you, I know you've got a lot of great things going on, you or what you're doing, where would they go to learn more?
You can check our website out, bigstatehomebuyers.com. You can Google my name. We have a lot of content, articles, and things like that. We guest write for a lot of papers and things like that. So it's Brian Spitz, Houston. And I think over the course of the coming 6 months, there's a lot of products that we've developed that we want to make it available to people who have audiences like yours. And so you'll see those opportunities to help other people's businesses become more efficient. So it's not so much about coaching as actually providing tools that are a little bit more innovative than what's available in the market today. So
yeah. Is it too early to give a little sneak peek or talk about what you're working on? I know you're working on, I certainly couldn't explain it as well as you, but any little sneak peek?
Yeah, sure. So I went to school for psychology. So the way people think has always been the biggest advantage for me in sales. And we've generated some technology and algorithms and things that are based on our historical transactions that can do that work for you. It will predict your sellers' motivation and their end result of a transaction from one phone call. So we're going to provide that for people who belong to networks like SplitNerd. And then on the same end, we've developed some things for buyers that will help only put properties of interest to them in front of them. And so again, rather than developing our own constantly feeding with our own stuff, we want to make that available to other investors. And really, I'll tell you, for a plug for your investor fuel, one of the biggest things that really got me to the end of this notion of providing tools to other investors is we sit in that room in those masterminds and everybody talks about Open Door. Everybody talks about those threats. And I look around the room and I see more money and more time and more knowledge about this industry collectively, in that room than any one of those companies can do. And so I think anything that we can provide as a community, now's not the time to be telling sellers how bad your competitors are. Now is the time to think about how we can all work together in whatever ways possible so that we can survive the changes to the market. And I'll tell you, it was really attending one of your masterminds that really kind of helped me complete our vision. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think in terms of masterminding or getting around other people, I mean, we're obviously huge advocates of it. I think, I've shared my story many times to people that listen to the show, but initially for the first couple of years, I was, I didn't really want to network. I put my head down and I thought everybody was my competition. So why would I network with them or try to discuss what's going on with them? But there's so much value that comes out of that. Was so naive in hindsight. So much value that comes out of just getting around like-minded, hardworking people that have insights that you don't have, and just sharing those stories and lessons.
Well, it all starts at the top of any organization because, of course, your experience is with what?
Right.
Major organization that really, the organization pits people against each other and against the parent organization. And so you create a culture of competition and fear and police state, but it's really it's not the model for a successful organization.
I agree with that.
I think the more people like you can bring that to the investor community, then your people that buy into that are going to be in it for the long haul.
Awesome. Brian, thanks again for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We're going to add links down below. And as you get closer with your launch and this new technology, which I have a little bit of insight to, it's going to be pretty impressive and help a lot of people. So we'll definitely kind of communicate that to our audience.
A March launch.
March 2019. Awesome.
Yeah, we're going to trickle more information out between now and then, kind of unveil the new brand sooner than later, but by March of 2019, it'll be
awesome. It feels really weird saying anything about 2019. That's just saying a year. It's sounds like we're well into the future, but it's just a few months away. So
I'm pushing another decade past in the next couple of years, and I can't freaking
awesome.
Turn this in. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yep. Everybody, hey, this is episode number 438 with Brian Spitz, talking about these big competitors coming into our market and what we can do differently. So the reality is with every step of adversity you face, there are opportunities that are created. And so rather than trying to hold on to the past and do things the way you've always done them, we've probably all seen investors like that are still doing things the way they did them a long time ago, and they're struggling more than ever. Just know you've got to evolve. You've got to continue to evolve in this business. And given the size of the housing market and the fact that there's hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. and they all need housing, there will always be an opportunity for us. It's just a matter of, can you evolve and shift as the market changes. So again, episode number 438. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, YouTube, wherever you might watch or listen to us at. Of course, we have over 1,500 podcasts on flipnerd.com, and you can watch and listen to all of them there. So Appreciate everybody. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you. Talk to you
Awesome.
later.
Awesome. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you on the next show. If you're an active real estate investor already doing deals and looking to double or triple your business, you should consider joining the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. We're a small group of investors that share our best practices, tips, and tricks with one another in an effort to all win. Real estate investing can be a lonely business for successful real estate investors, but it doesn't have to be. Investor Fuel members meet 4 times a year, but we talk to each other 365 days a year, and we focus on improving the profitability of our businesses, improving the quality of our lives. That's why we do this, right? And making an impact on those around us so we can truly leave a legacy. We limit our membership to only 1 to 2 members per market, so everyone shares their knowledge, tips, and tricks openly and honestly. Our members include some buying 1 to 2 houses a month, up to some of the most respected investors and leaders in the real estate investing industry, some of which have personally done over 1,000 deals. If you'd like to be considered for our invitation-only world-class mastermind, please visit investorfuel.com to request your personal invitation. Our next meeting is coming up quickly. Go to investorfuel.com now to learn more. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Investing Show. If you're not yet a member of FlipNerd, you're missing out. We have tons of great training, including a new detailed masterclass published each month and live training webinars with experts twice a month. Plus, you'll get access to all of our archives, where we already have a growing library of masterclasses and other training videos. Members also get membership in our incredible online mastermind group, where many of the top real estate investors from across the country, including many of the hundreds of guests I've had on the show in the past, are already members. Whether you're brand new, looking to get started, or a veteran, you simply must join today. I promise you won't be disappointed. To learn more or join today, please visit flipnerd.com. That's flipnerd.com. See you on the next show.